I like to learn and I don't care about the topic. Publish for me is the consequence of doing science. Science is not the publication. You want to understand. It doesn't matter what you have in front of you. It's your desire to understand, to know better, to get a more intimate relation with the thing you are looking at. We need to talk about AI alignment, the alignment problem. We cannot define intelligence properly. If you start tabula rasa, data is the only thing you have. We had this problem in society since long already. It's human alignment, we have a problem with it. A civilization that has forgotten the history is doomed to repeat.
That is Juan Pablo Carbajal, research scientist at the Eastern Switzerland University of Applied Sciences. Juan Pablo is a trained physicist, passionate educator, and interdisciplinary scientist who has worked at the frontiers of physics, biology, robotics, agronomy, biomechanics, and machine learning. His persistent curiosity for understanding the underlying system dynamics and nonlinearity of any topic he encounters has shaped his worldview and fascination for our complex and interconnected world, allowing him to embark on topics long before they become mainstream. My name is Peter Marcus Bach, and this is the Grand Challenges Podcast, a show about inspiring individuals who are stepping up to tackle the global challenges that our world is facing in their own unique ways. We reflect on the many out-of-the-box ways our guests have navigated the complexity and intricacies of our environment at the cutting edges of science, engineering, technology, and design. On today's show, Juan Pablo and I discuss and frame the AI alignment problem and the impact that human misalignment can have on our future AI systems and the world. We trace how his journey through the disciplines has shaped his view on where education needs to head in future, core principles and values we humans can learn from the natural world, the topic of intelligence and physics-informed AI, and the power and importance of multidisciplinary and complex systems thinking. Visit tgcpodcast.show for detailed information and show notes on this episode. Thank you for joining us today, and please enjoy the show. JP. Great to have you here.
Hey, thank you very much, Peter. I'm also glad to be here.
And thanks for inviting me out to Bad Ragaz, about an hour and a half from Zurich. So it was a lovely drive through the snow this morning.
That's great, yeah. It's a little bit cold for me, but...
Well, we managed to schedule this exactly in one of these cold moments in Switzerland. We don't get much snow, but luckily we have some snow now. So it's beautiful, it's peaceful. And yeah, Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you too. Sorry, I'm always bad with these formalities.
I don't know, I'm at the point where there's too many people to wish. You'd like to do it in one go, but I always like to do the personalized message.
Yeah, that's nice, yeah.
But you greeted me with beautiful mate tea.
Yeah, that's our Argentinian specialty in what goes for drinks. But I guess nowadays everybody knows mate. It's been commercialized in many brands and products. But we drink it in Argentina since definitely before I was born. It's a very old tradition in Argentina. So we drink it in many ways. Like the typical one you may see, or is like the gaucho way, where you drink it in this sort of, it's a cup with a special straw, and you put the mate in, and then you pour hot water or cold water also. Yeah. It takes a different name when you pour cold water. But that's the two ways. And then there is another one more like really like a tea, which is called, free translation here, so cooked mate or boiled mate, which is more prepared, more like a tea, basically.
Yeah, that's the one you served.
Yeah, that's the one we drank today.
Yeah, I remember a colleague of mine back in my days in Australia also drank a lot of mate. She had this fancy cup you talk about. I'm still trying to figure out what material it is. It's like, it's not glass, it's not plastic.
Yeah, so there are different ways. The old ones are all made of pumpkin.
Pumpkin?
Yeah, so, there is type of... pumpkin that it's elongated and it has it has so many names, but here they call it butternut, and it's made of this material. But any pumpkin goes, but you can do this wood. It's a wood. Then they're also made of wood directly, so like tree woods. There are some made of sandalwood, the sandal, or like these aromatic woods. They give also imprint their flavor on the mate. Then you can have also made of... But nowadays, the ones that are popular because they're easy to clean is ceramic on the outside and glass on the inside.
Oh, wow.
So they have like a glass, this one. And usually there's leather outside so you can grab it. It doesn't slip.
Jeez, there's whole technology behind all this.
Yeah. As I told you, it's something ancient for us. And very traditional. We drink mate when we meet people. Yeah. There will always be a mate. We drink it, eat it, I said, in a way that was absolutely non-corona conform. Because we share, this cup is shared. So you're talking, and then you pour your own mate, you drink it empty, and then you put it again, and you pass it to the next person. Yeah. So it's going like that.
Well, they say the straw is metal. So, they say bacteria can't survive there. That's why they build all these water bottles with metal inside.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, but the time between one person, the acid lips on it, again, it's definitely easy for the cleaning afterwards. But during the meeting, it's shared. But I mean, it's like kissing.
Indirect kissing.
Yeah. But it is like this. We like it like this. It builds a bond also.
Yeah.
It also speaks of trust, right? Because if you're sharing the mate with somebody else, it means you somehow trust them.
Yeah, and it's South America. I've been there to a few countries, Argentina as well, Buenos Aires. I spent the day there. It was amazing. And it's a very warm place. You feel people are very warm there. And that trust and bonding is very important and central.
Yeah, I would say despite, because the situation now, and I mean, in the whole last century in Latin America, political, economical, it's been a disaster, I would call it. But despite of that, people are still very warm and trust. I mean, people trust very quickly on other people, and they're very open.
Yeah.
So it's a nice feeling, I think, in this sense. Yeah, but then you have the other thing. It's good to be there probably on holidays or something like that. Living there is hard.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't have to say much. You come also from the other side of the world, which is, I guess, similar.
Yeah, it keeps you on your feet, but it teaches you a lot as well about life.
I think so, yeah.
But I do want to capture your secret mate recipe on this show, because you did serve it to me and you say it's very different. Now, I got obsessed with it last summer because we kept buying all these, soda can mates, which, as you've mentioned, they're nowhere near as strong. Yeah. And mate is often seen as a replacement to coffee.
Yes.
Often a more healthier one as well. Yeah. But how do you make it for those who want to make their own mate?
Yeah, exactly. So the way I drink mate is very economical, right? So you can buy 1 pack of Yerba mate, usually, 1 kilo. That's the standard package. And that costs nowadays in Switzerland about 20 francs. Then with using 2 soup spoons of it, you can put these ones about 2 liters of water, and then you boil it all together. So you bring it to boil. And then here comes how you like it. People like it light. They will boil it and stop.
Okay.
And then you need to filter it with a sieve to remove the leaves. And then you can drink the liquid warm, or you can wait. And so there are all the times that define your recipe, right? So the first one is how much you boil it, how long you boil it.
Yeah.
Right? I go usually about the 5 minutes boiling. So it's already, while it's boiling, it's very dark.
Okay.
Then there is a time how much you leave it rest. Right. So if you drink it directly, it's the warmest and the lightest one, but it's very, very nice, very enjoyable. It's like a tea, basically. Yeah. But you can leave it rest. And this one is overnight. So I brewed it last night, and then I let it rest for the whole night. So this morning it was like this dark brown color.
Oh, wow.
Which I love. I mean, you see it in the bottle. Now I put a little bit of lemon, so it's slightly lighter. But otherwise, it's really like this green-brown, dark green brown, yeah?
A dash of lemon. Now we should definitely refill my cup while I'm listening to your...
Yeah. So so you see it's kind of light now, but compared to other mates, this will be quite dark. So, and then I leave it the whole night, and then I, as you say, put a dash of lemon. You could put mint. There are people who put mint on it. You can put sugar also. This one, I guess the lemons I used were quite sweet because it's unprecedentedly sweet, this one.
Yeah, it's usually not a sweet tinge.
Yeah, it's also sweet usually. It's bitter. But it depends on, if you put orange, people also put orange, and it will be sweeter. Yeah, I have mixed it here in Switzerland with apples as well.
Okay,
it's weird, but it's not bad. Yeah.
So you heard it, listeners. Do it yourself, however you want, and it's an experiment, I guess.
Yeah, and it's very easy. And again, 1 pack of Yerba can last for months. And it's cheaper. I think you avoid a lot of the conservant stuff that you get on the cans, and you avoid all the trash and all the things that are associated with it. And you will see once you drink your own made mate, which is not complicated at all. Yeah, the other thing, you drink it only if it's absolutely neat.
Yeah.
There is a thing to warm. There is some sort of affinity of different people. So, for example, if I drink coffee, I am not stimulated a lot. It doesn't have a big effect on me. I do it because I like the flavor. But there are other fruits or plants with caffeine in high content. And there is mate, there is guarana. There are several of them. they all come, the caffeine come kind of wrapped in other molecules or together with other molecules. And those
getting technical here.
Yeah. And those may accelerate, how you put the caffeine in your blood.
Yeah.
It could be like I don't know if catalysis is the right word, but you can definitely know this. My own experience, like the effect I get from coffee and the effect I get from similar amount of mate, or let's say it's equivalent amount of mate, it's much faster and it's stronger. So if I drink, for example, a liter of matter in a day, I will be really I will feel it on my nerves and things like that. But that's a lot of caffeine, yeah.
Wow. So your daily dose of nutritional advice, well, it's not medical advice here,
absolutely
but
not,
definitely check it out. I've definitely grown to like drinking it, so I'll have to try making it myself as well.
You get also, because you do it with the leaves, I think this is not on the products that you buy or a lot less. You are not only drinking mate, right? There is a lot of other molecules you get from these plants. I've read also people mention this, that the Yerba mate also has quite some contents of omega-3 and antioxidants. So you get also this other stuff. Yeah.
So I think, if we shift gears, listeners will be shocked to find that you're not actually a nutritional scientist.
I am not. Yeah.
But you do work across so many disciplines, in your journey. And, if I just had to list the keywords, physics, robotics, biomechanics, you're passionate about education. There's also biology, so maybe that applies.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess, if you had to sum up what your interest is and your passion is in what you do into one keyword, how would you put it all together?
That's a very hard one because, as you say, I'm a physicist. Now, under physics, people have very different understandings, right? But I will put it, I like to learn.
Yeah.
And I don't care about the topic. It doesn't matter for me. I never say, I'm doing biology or I'm doing biomechanics. I really don't care. But my thing is, I also like formalization of mostly. So I like to experiment, doing things like that. I do a lot of things at home before when I had more time, but still curious, to say, in this way. And then there is this process when you start reading about it. And then there is this feeling I always have, I want to formalize this. And it means usually math. So one topic that I use a lot and I like is dynamical systems.
Okay.
That's a field, again, it's a field of mathematics, I would put it. It's how you use differential equations to model behavior, and this could be applied to any field. And this has been a strong, always back end that I carry with me. And then, I've been spread everywhere. I've been work with artists, work with roboticists, with biologists, with biomechanicals, with doctors. I have worked on the metallurgy field. I have worked with agronomy, agricultural studies. So there is, for me, the topic is not a boundary. Like it may be something you put so other people understand what you're doing, but absolutely, I do not build boundaries on these things.
Yeah. You're just reminding me of the anxieties that I had just back in episode 56 when I couldn't recognize a Fourier transform on a whiteboard with my previous guest. But hey, mathematics and physics seem to be the two dominant disciplines that allow you to then explore the open space, different types of applications, different types of fields as well, like the ones you've just mentioned.
Exactly. So I never knew what I wanted to do in my life. I was a teenager or younger, but I always have this thing that I just described. I like to do experiment stuff, look at things. Mm-hmm. So I was always, not in a scientific way, just, I like to see, I don't know, how grasshoppers were jumping around. I like to see how frogs grew up. Like when I was, between 6 and 8, I was always going to a river close to my home. And I will pick up the tadpoles that were swimming there, and also little crabs that were swimming there. And I would just grow them at home and just look how they, grow and how they. and there is this anecdote I have. It was really marked me in a way. I think I was maybe 8 or something like that, and I was spending the whole day on this river picking up tadpoles and crabs. And you have crabs maybe. It's not like sea crabs, This is more like, I don't know, a sort of shrimp kind of thingy. It's more rounded than a shrimp. I don't know what is similar to it, but it's more like a rounded thing. It's not, it doesn't look like a crabs with, pincers and this kind of thing. But anyway, so I was picking them up, and I also grabbed a little bit of soil. I put them in this plastic bucket, and then I brought it home, put them in their terrarium, what people call it today. It was just one of these wide plastic bucket. I put it on the garden, not direct sunlight, things you learn how you see how they. And then I put the crabs, the tadpoles together. And everything looked fine. I was there. I was expecting I'm going to have my new batch of, little frogs and things like that.
I'm sensing some foreshadowing here.
Yeah, you're right. So the whole day spent, then I was in bed, and I was in my mother's bed, and I was reading this booklet about aquatic animals.
Yeah.
And then I say, oh, look, these are the crabs I have.
Yeah.
I found there was a picture and said, these are the crabs. Oh, yeah, the mountain crabs, blah, 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 blah. They live in mess. The favorite meal is tadpoles.
Oh, no.
So I immediately, I don't know, maybe it was night. It was definitely night. So, and it was summer. So it means in Argentina, probably around 10 in the night. I came out like, no, the tadpoles. And I came out, and they feed in the night. So that's why it didn't happen during the day. And I came down with the lantern shining thing, and it was a massacre.
Oh, no.
It was a massacre. It was like guts of tadpoles everywhere. My crabs were very, very happy, very, very active. But
tadpoles less so.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone survived. And I said, okay, I will have crabs now this time. So I went to bed, and I was happy about it. And then we have in our garden, it was not a big garden, but we have enough green to play around as kids. We all had, in the morning, there was this beautiful bird that visits us and sings. We call it Kitupi, or I don't know what's actually, I should search for it, but it's a
Kitupi.
Kitupi, that's a local name. Yep. So probably it's Guarani name. Venteveo is a European name they give, so Spaniards call it Venteveo. But it's rather medium, similar to a fisher. Mm-hmm. It's probably in the family of the fisher. It's yellow and has a thing around their eyes with white and black. It's really nice animal and has a very distinctive sing. So it chirps in a very particular way. So they usually come every morning to feed. And then I woke up in the morning. It was a Saturday, and then keep going with this thing and say, okay, look, this is a bird that is always coming. I say, okay, I don't remember the name now. Favorite feed? River crabs.
Oh, no.
Fantastic.
I was sensing this was going to be a trend here.
So I was finishing my breakfast. I was like, no, we need to move them out of the garden. And it was too late. There were 3 of them working on the crabs.
And that's how you discovered the ecological food chain.
Exactly. But it was wonderful because first I saw this and then how they live together. Because in the river where I picked them up, they live together. Yeah. I guess confined space is the key word here. So they can live together, but you cannot put them together, to live in this small thing. Or you have to feed the crabs and then protect them with a net or something like that.
Yeah.
So that but it was easy for the fish to fish them. They were in this bucket. Yeah. It was for the crabs easy to pick the tadpoles because they were
in the bucket.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's what. But I was doing this kind of thing. So I said, okay, maybe I should do biology. This is what people were going around. You should do biology.
That's sort of where this trend seems to be heading, yes.
Yeah, exactly, right? So I said, well, let's read about biology. And I started looking into magazines and things like that, talking with people. And I felt immediately it's too specific,
Okay.
It's like, I understand, but, can you do then something else that is not biology if you're a biologist, right? Like completely different. Like, can you build machines, for example, right? Yeah. And I said, it will not be difficult, right? So it's okay, biology is nice, but not what I want to do. So then I started to participate this couple of years later in a chemistry Olympiads in Argentina. We participated 3 times. I was quite successful. It was going well. So people told me, you should be a chemist. Chemist should be your thing. So I said, okay, that sounds good. I like chemistry. And then I said, but then I realized that what I actually liked of chemics was not the chemics itself, like the formulas and this kind of thing, but, what are these little guys, the electrons? Why do they attract each other? Why, what? And they say, well, what is this that I like? It doesn't sound like chemistry because it's not the main topic in chemistry unless you do like physical chemistry or kinetics, things like that. So then I was very lucky. I met what would be my life mentor. He's dead now. He passed away a couple of years ago. Name is Daniel Cordova. I mean, if you look at it in Argentina, you will see he is now very well known. Posthumous honor, I would say. Well, when I met him, he was an outsider. He was cast out, but he would say he has a very beautiful theory about performance of kids in school. He said to get performance, the only thing you need is to get motivation. Yeah, this you could read everywhere. This Element book. The Element, I don't remember the author, but it's this idea of the flow, you're on the flow and the things.
You mean Csikszentmihalyi?
I could be. Look,
he wrote a famous book on flow.
I need to check what's the name of the book. But the name of the book is The Element. But
The Element, okay.
Yeah.
Because I know there's the famous work by Csikszentmihalyi on flow, the idea of the flow state.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty much the same.
Similar idea.
Yeah. The Element is, they call it The Element, is when you are in your element, basically. So he said, if you find this for each kids, then they will perform well in everything else.
Now, I guess it makes sense, satisfying a curiosity that kids have about the world and allowing them to actually explore rather than prohibiting them to do that.
Ken Robinson.
So Ken Robinson is the author for The Element.
The Element, yeah. But it's this idea, basically, that once you have this thing that drives you, this spills everywhere, even in the fields you don't like or you don't enjoy that much. Because you have your passion, you can always link to it. It's like, so this was his theory. He was, and then he was not very liked on the school because his methods, he was called elitist and things like that. It never was the case. He was not an elitist at all. I mean, you could think he was doing his elitist, but actually he was just trying to pursue, this kid, what moves this kid, basically, right? He was a physics teacher, but he was not like dragging kids to physics. He was like, maybe it's physics, what you like, and support you there. But he supported kids doing all the stuff as well. So he will take the problematic kids. I was a problematic kid in the sense my behavioral evaluations were never good.
No, I thought you were feeding tadpoles to crabs and crabs to birds.
Yeah. I was a very confrontative person. I think still I am. And I never like rules I didn't understand. I'm okay with rules if I understand what is the meaning and what is the purpose. And I may or may not see them as the solution, but I may accept them. Yeah. I'm fine with them. I have no problem. But if this is not the case, let's say more authoritative, I have very, very strong problems, and it's reflected in my behavior. So school was always, in this sense, complicated. So this guy took me and said, maybe you want to do something here and something. Started showing things, and then I realized, there is something on physics. There is something about it that nowadays, put it, is the spirit of the physicist, which is the thing of, you want to understand. It doesn't matter what you have in front of you. Yeah. It's your desire to understand, to know better, to get a more intimate relation with the thing you are looking at or you are perceiving. But of course, then you have the formal physics, right? Which is, again, physics, comes out, it was much related from philosophy than to math, right? I mean, math was also heavy related to it, and was also related to arts. These were arts, we split these things not very long ago.
I mean, many of the scientists from ages ago, they did all of these in one go.
Exactly.
Just look at Da Vinci, look at Galileo.
It's a natural thing because I think it's a spirit, as I mentioned. It's not a formal thing. It's just something you feel. It's something how you express yourself, how you interact with the world. And it doesn't have a particular box or cabinet where you feel, it's within this. No, but of course, I guess for organizing society, we need that. But it's not the way it comes about from you. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So there was this thing, and then I look, what about the career physics, the formal thing? Is this what I feel, what I like? Was not absolutely convinced, but, and this was the whole point of this big conversation, is I realized, many times I already had confronted this question, can I do something else afterwards? If I get bored of this topic, does it allow me to move somewhere else? You can always move somewhere else, but how hard? The switching cost, how big is the switching cost, right? So I said, let's look what physicists do. Yeah. Right, what they have done. And I found them everywhere. You can find a physicist everywhere. They're all over the place. And I think because of that, because there is a spirit of the thing that, of course, applies in any field. Even in humanities, maybe this is not the best example for humanities, but, there is this, the Sokal affair. I don't know if you heard about it.
No, to enlighten me.
Yeah, okay. So it's... I don't want to be chauvinistic, but it's maybe I would pick a bad example. But anyway, so Sokal was a physicist, and he saw in this time that there was this social scientists who were picking up concepts and words from the physics field.
You see this a lot.
Yeah, and changing the context and the interpretation, and started using them in their, let's say, social science like that. And in principle, that's not bad. You could use it as a metaphor, as an analogy, but this was going a little bit too far away, and there were magazines about these topics, and he didn't like this situation. So what he did, he made a fake article.
Oh, wow.
Using all these words and all these things, right? And he tried to publish it on the magazine, and it was published. Oof. And so after it was published, he then wrote the other article explaining how all this was BS, right? And this was, was big.
Huge controversy.
Yeah, huge. This was really blown to this group. This thing doesn't exist anymore. I don't remember the name. But again, if you just say Sokal affair, you will find it. So this is a physicist. So you see, why is meddling with humanities, right? Then you have them in social life, you have them in climate, you have everything that goes into the natural science, you have them everywhere spread. They also do math. They do math, they are in music, you can find them. So basically everywhere. They're in biology. And say, that's what I want. I want a formation, an education that allows me to be a libero so the guy who can't take any position, right? This is what I want. This is what I want about my education, and this is what I found, at least in the way physics is taught in Argentina. It was like this. Absolutely non-compartmentalized, really focusing on the level you need to exercise this thing you have, like how you be analytical, how you organize your knowledge, how you organize an experiment, how you formalize some behavior. This is math. This is how math comes in. How you simulate your math in a computer. All these things were there. And I said, okay, this is what I want. And I follow this education like this. In the physics itself, I also tried to avoid many times specialization. So I was very broad in topics, changing my topics. And then I was lucky, I would say, to get accepted to a special school in Argentina. It's called Instituto Balseiro. From the whole country, you are selected through an exam. And if you pass the exam, you get a scholarship that covers all your costs, all your life. You get also a living place. And then you can dedicate your life to just to learn, right?
Yeah.
And it was, of course, this for me was the dream because this is what I wanted. It's like I don't have to have any other.
It satisfies your curiosity. It gives you something that is more generalist, but allows you to then, branch out in whatever topic you want. I find that nowadays learning to learn is actually the key here, rather than learning a particular field of specialization.
Absolutely. And maybe we're going to talk about AI later, but this is where your competition with the AI comes in, right?
Yeah.
But so then in this place, there was this opportunity. You get all your cover needs. You need to talk only about physics now.
Yeah.
So it was fantastic. The thing ended up not being what I wanted, but it also gave me a nice flash of the other type of physics, because in this place, nowadays, in retrospective, I would call it was a lot more Americanized, so North Americanized, so United States style of teaching compared to the other universities in Argentina. And this was my first confrontation with this type of learning, which I will say then, and I will repeat it now, I don't like at all. I don't approve of it. And again, it's focused on performance and not on, trying to really prove the student what you have learned, what you understand, right? So it's a lot of, rote exercise, a lot of rote. I never had, in 3 years of my education into physics, to repeat things, kind of to memorize stuff and to learn equations by heart and things like that. But I was there to be able to pass the exams. This was something you had to do because of the amount of context and the rhythm in which you had to solve exercise. And it was I didn't like it at all. It was good to have this experience. It trains we call it your waist, in a way that waist. You can, because now you're very agile. Right?
It's like building muscles.
Yeah, it's like building muscles. But when I went in, I had some expectation of how much I would learn. And when I went out, I realized I had learned something, but that's not really related with physics, what I wanted to learn. So I was a little bit of a hole in the region, which I then had to work on to fill in. But I don't want to be say, oh, this was a waste of time. It absolutely wasn't. It was not what I was expecting. It trained me on reasons that I was not looking at the moment to do it. May be useful in some sense, but again, it's not what I think a physics education should be.
Yeah. They often say, when you really master something, you can understand it, you can explain it, you can teach it. I mean, we just take the famous quote from Richard Feynman, the best way to learn is to teach it to someone. I've just butchered that, not the exact words. But essentially that's the idea. Yeah. And I found that, whilst school somehow hammers things into you repetitively, but a good university education is not the items that you learn and the widgets that you can apply, but more like the style of thinking that you get from your degree.
Correct.
And, I went the engineering route. I wonder if you had the same kind of idea. You're good at math, you should do something in that field. I went the engineering route, and I feel like that problem-solving, critical thinking skill was the most valuable thing that I gained from it. And as you said, not trying to memorize equations, but knowing how to navigate, complex textbooks with methodologies or engineering standards or, what have it.
Yeah.
So,
correct. It is the tools at the end. I think a good education is a good set of tools.
Yeah.
But also, you're also the value side of education, right? Like you may know a lot of math, you may know a lot of a particular topic. What about your ethics and what about your morals? I think this is also part of an education, even a professional one.
Certainly.
This is sometimes forgotten, though, I must say, in the search for more performance and to be able to measure students, with a number. How are you going to measure, ethical values, and are people understanding, or at least, I wouldn't evaluate ethical values, but at least I would discuss them, have events where you can discuss things to give a perspective, an opinion, a flavor to events, and not just, let's say this is the Fourier transform. But maybe there are some moral histories and ethical issues behind the Fourier transform. There are. I think these things are also part of a good education. Yeah. But definitely more into the, let's say, the thing you can easily evaluate in a more numerical way. It's not about content. This is a problem, especially here in Switzerland, in the primary school, that I see is too much focus on content. Like kids are going through a turmoil phase of life. They're growing, they're discovering themselves, their body changes all the time, their mind changes all the time. They have to learn how to go out with social interactions that they have. This is really a complicated. Yeah. If you think back what was it was beautiful. I love my childhood. But I can notice oh man, this was so different. This was so complex. So how did I manage actually?
Yeah.
So focusing on content, like trying to kids to know something at the age, it's a waste of time. Things are not going to stick at that point. And for kids, it's not relevant, these things at that point. You need to know this because if you're a professional, you are 12, man. You need to go to a lot of things before you're a professional. Maybe you want to give this a little bit later, right? It's not like knowing, especially here, like having an item in your internal dictionary you can pick up when you need it. This sense of knowing is important as soon as possible, as early on. And it is a waste of time, actually. So it's better to learn how to pick up those things and, to make you robust about changes and make you flexible. And these things are more important.
Teaching the man how to fish instead of just giving him a fish.
Yeah,
the famous saying again.
Yeah.
We'll definitely come back to the education round because that's something you're incredibly passionate about, and you've been very active in Switzerland as well in STEM education. But let's see where your journey has taken you. So, licenciado in physics, that's what they called it in 2003.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you went from there to do a master's in physical sciences, and that's where you started to go more into, I guess, the technical side rather than tadpoles and crabs. Crack detection, apparently, using magnetic flux leakage. I have no idea what that is, but you'll enlighten me shortly. Then after that, you went into the natural sciences, natural dynamics. So that, in a way, links back to the Tadpole Story. I guess that came back to the front and center. And then robotics after that. So I see there is a link there. It's really about understanding the natural system, trying to apply it to more, I guess, mechanical systems, to processes. And the physics that you studied in Argentina wasn't completely theoretical. There was a lot more of applied, from what I understand.
Yeah. So especially in the latest year, we had a very strong training on experimental science and applied science. This institution had their own nuclear reactor, so we were exposed to let's say, the life of nuclear engineers and how you deal with radiation, and we had also some experimental classes with the neutrons, and things we can do, neutography. And this is one of the biggest things I appreciate from this strong education on physics. It was the technical level, especially on the applied side. I don't know where I should start, but basically I'll pick up what you say. So what is magnetic flux leakage, right? So this is a funny thing about the magnetic field, right? It likes to go within the metals. So if you have a magnet, and we, visualize the magnetic field with these lines that you can actually visualize. If you put metal powder around the magnet, and you put a paper on top of the magnet, and you throw some metal powder on it, then you will see this field forming these shapes.
You're taking me back to my childhood and teenage years when I did this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we can do it again in the hobby realm. I still have these things. So you see these field lines, and this is how you represent. Now, if you put a metal close to it and you do the same thing, you will see the lines are kind of like pointing towards the metal. These lines want to go into the metal, right? Yeah. And once they're in, so if and put it, the magnet touching the piece of metal, and then you look at the lines, you will see almost none of them are out. Like you don't see them anymore. All the lines are now hidden, are inside the metal.
Okay.
Right? So like magnetic field gun, so it's a ferromagnetic material, of course. Other materials, other metals will do something else. Yeah. So these are the ones on which the magnets stick, right? So the lines of field go inside. Now, imagine what happens if you have an indentation or a crack in this material. At that point, the lines will be expelled around. So
Yeah.
they want to stay in the material, but because you put a crack, they kind of blob. And then the lines will avoid this. It's like water avoids an island in a river, for example, right?
Yeah.
But of course, when they are avoiding the island, they push water that is outside also to that. So you will see that the water to go around the island, you will see water also over the shores, the outside part.
Okay.
Also. So this happens also with the magnetic field. So if there is a crack inside the metal, these lines will avoid the crack, but they will push the lines out, and then you will see farther away, a couple of millimeters away, a couple of centimeters away, that now you have a line outside of the material. It's being pushed by something that is inside, a crack.
So using these theories for some practical application, and in this case, a crack detection.
Yeah.
Just general materials, or you could use this on utility infrastructure.
So this is extremely used and is a standard technique for detecting cracks in pipes, metal pipes.
Yep.
Now, metal pipes nowadays, everybody associated with oil and gas. Yes, that's when I work on a company, that's what they were doing. But the same pipes, they are very structure stable. So they are used also for construction. Most of the cylindrical structures that you see are made of this type of pipes, in which you can use these techniques to detect cracks internally. So you can inspect them by, just passing a magnet sensor, a coil around them. And if you have the spike, you say, okay, there is something inside there that is expelling the magnetic field.
Something that we need done quickly nowadays so that we can do rectification works, any repairs.
Yeah, usually the way you test pipes is you're going to close both ends and then pipe air inside it until it blows.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't blow, up to some pressure. And this is called destructive testing. And as you can imagine, this is expensive and it's not monitoring each element. You can monitor only one in a while, hoping the ones in between, or you get an idea of how the problem you get about pipe. But with this technique, you can monitor each pipe, right? You can go around the pipes and then you increase the quality of the pipes. This is a requirement for the oil and gas industry. You cannot not inspect your pipes. And even after deployment, after they are installed, you have this called PIGs. They're called like
PIGs.
Yeah, so PIG is called pipe inspection gauge.
Yes.
So it's like a drone, like in the Matrix, these guys that were chasing the ships around. They look like that. They go into the pipe and they just these rounded things that in the Matrix they were used to fly around. They are just coils and they will sense the magnetic field on the pipe. Yeah.
Very important for asset management, especially in oil and gas, where it has to keep operating and you can't just break a pipe and expect to replace it.
It's usually a huge accident, It's either fire or contamination, It's pollution. This is something you definitely don't want to happen,
Okay, so you definitely enlightened me that, but that's a really practical application.
Absolutely
of
practical.
Physical physics theory to real-world application.
Yeah.
And so how did you go from there then later on into robotics?
Yeah, I would say exactly after that, I went into agronomics. And there's also a life lesson I learned there from biology. So I left this company, which I was well paid, and we were doing very interesting work. But because of I'll call it political, moral reason, I left the company. And it was for many of my family and my friends, like really shocking. Like, how are we going to leave this place? It's almost a privileged position. What do you have? Why you left? And I said, well, I couldn't stand it anymore. Not because of what I was doing, because things around it. So then I said, okay, well, now I want to pursue a PhD. I was already looking around and I wanted to go back to this topic I like, which is the dynamical system, this mathematical way of representing behavior, I'll put it like this.
Yeah.
And I want to talk more directly related to this. And I searching around, I found that control uses a lot, control theory, like the type of algorithms you use in machines to make them behave like you want, which is there I linked to robotics. So I was literally searching for a PhD in robotics. But in the meanwhile, in the span between I got a PhD position and a scholarship and, the means to do it, I had to, do something. I had to work. And so I was working on a school of agronomy in a university in Cordoba in Argentina. And there was this woman who was studying a type of bacteria that live in the roots of plants. And they have a mutualistic relation. So they help each other between the plants and the bacteria. I mean, there's also economical reasons, you seed the soil with these bacteria to help plants grow, especially soya and all these monetary productive crops. But it happens in natural as well. Right? So it's a natural thing for many leguminosa plants and this rhizobium bacterium. The name basically be something like they live on the roots. Very imaginative names. You put it in Latin, now it sounds fancy, but it just means like, they live on the roots.
A lot of science likes to explain it in very complicated ways, but then Yeah.
Yeah.
At the end, it boils down to something like it's dirt here.
Exactly. So they live on the roots, and the plants, when they detect a root, they move. They are very slow, but they move into the soil, and they reach the plant, and they start signaling with some molecules that they are there. Mm-hmm. And then the plants start creating nodules called a little house. So the root will really make a nodule like a pick, thing. You see it sometimes because there are flies that do something similar to plants. That's not mutualism, but they put their eggs inside plants, and you will see this kind of like it looks like a wart, and it happens very neatly, very small on the roots, and then the bacteria will colonize that thing, and they will live protected there. They will get what they need to survive, and as a byproduct of their metabolism, they produce nitrogen.
So the plants love that.
Yeah, exactly. So they take gaseous nitrogen and they convert it into nitrogen the plant can use as food. So it's like they eat from the air, basically, make the plant eat. Without them, the plant cannot do it. So they do it only. So for the plant, it's beneficial to have these nodules, and for the bacteria as well. That's why it's called mutualism. And here comes the life thing. This is all good. They wanted to understand the dynamics of that. But on a particular aspect, if you go and sample natural fields on these bacteria, you find that there are several strands of the same bacteria, and some of them are called cheaters. That means they have the mechanism to signal the plant they are there. So the plant will build a nodule for them, but they don't fix nitrogen.
Oh.
So it's like, you're free riders.
Yeah.
Right? So they wanted to understand why is this? And again, it's still a debate, I will call it. It's still open. But what you see is that in the records, and what we know is this has been for a long time like this. Like there is a high percentage of cheaters in these bacteria. How they survive? Why this behavior is not being punished, basically, right? This is the open question. And this person wanted to study or to debunk a theory that these plants will punish those nodules that do not produce. It will make them old earlier. So the plant can stop to that nodule that is there, they can stop feeding it, and it goes old, it dries out. And then the bacteria are rejected and they could die, basically. So do you break the house? Wow. You evict them, right? So that was the idea. So plants will evict the cheaters, right? And this was not directly supported by evidence, but it was not clear if you go and measure the nodules. So this person was studying how, if there was a difference, you can notice a difference. They will split the root of a plant in two. They will take a bacterial and then they will genetically modify it so that it is the same bacterial, except it doesn't fix the nitrogen. It's the only difference. And they will put it in, so control experiments and everything, and they will count the nodules and see how the number changed over time, and saw the no difference. That was her experiment. She wanted a mathematical model for this experiment. Like, can we explain this, a mechanism that allows us to explain, how can it be that cheaters are surviving like this? So the plant doesn't seem to bother them.
Just as you're telling this story, I was visualizing in my head, but strangely enough, I was visualizing more a societal picture rather than a microscopic picture. Yes. But essentially, these processes, they can be microscopic, they can be macroscopic. Yeah. We're encountering similar dynamics. Yeah. And it's just different levers you're pulling. They just are named differently.
Yeah. I think, again, I call it a life lesson because tolerance. I think it is that plants somehow manage to tolerate this behavior. I think at the end of the day, and this was her explanation, it's more expensive to set up these control mechanisms for the plant, and probably it needs to evolve first, it's not there, than just to, go around. If you have 50% of your nodes with this bacteria, it's okay. You still survive them, and you produce enough to host the other guys. It's not a problem. If all of them become cheaters, that is a problem. Yeah. So that's why it is not happening. But if you have enough percentage non-cheaters, that's fine. And are the non-cheaters somehow damaged by the presence of teachers? They are not. They live their lives. They get the nodules. The only thing they do is breathe. They just need to live and produce, and the plant will be happy. And there are some guys that are not doing this. They are also living, but don't do this. Yeah, but it comes at no cost. So it's okay. It's a lesson on tolerance. If we have a productive societies that can sustain themselves, we don't need to strive for optimization. We need to strive to optimal performance, and everybody needs to be a productive person. Or let's say, especially for us, we have these stereotypes where we put people in, right? Yeah. To be productive means you fit in a particular stereotype that society will. It doesn't mean you're not productive if you're different from that stereotype, but definitely we won't be productive if you evaluate it in those terms, right? So basically, let people live. If you have this kind of society, this is an ideal society, I would call it, where people can live in the way they want and not only push into you need to have this particular behavior to be a useful citizen, right? Which sadly is the trend I always see. You are kind of forced into a particular, not very strongly, but I see the tendency, like this over tendency to control and optimize.
Or to categorize.
Yeah, or maximize an indicator.
And we mentioned this earlier.
You need it.
Nowadays, specialization, but that seems to not be the case going forward into the future.
We need to talk about AI alignment, right? The alignment problem, because it sounds because for many people now, like we had this problem in society since long already.
Yeah.
It's human alignment. We have a problem with it. And it has to do with this thing, like if you start putting these numbers, especially one number, because it's usually very low dimensional way we evaluate things, right? And you associate with this number a type of behavior or a type of behaviors, right? And so I'm going to optimize for that, right? This may lead to some behaviors you don't want, actually. You like unexpected behaviors that may emerge from this pressure that you actually don't want to have. You may not realize you don't want them because you don't see the effects now, but in the long term. So again, it's this tendency to over control and evaluate and optimize everything. I think to be optimized, there is a middle ground where this is stop being optimized. And I took this from the plants. I said, okay, it was again, this is also funny. Like these theories about punishment thing is coming mainly from the USA.
Yeah.
And, all the theories that are not about punishment coming more from like Latin American countries and Asian countries. Is also, you see how, again, morals and culture and ethics are playing them around there. Like,
and it's difficult to navigate ultimately.
Yeah, so these scientists, they have a particular cultural background, style, and they say, okay, yeah, it's the most obvious hypothesis. The plant must be punishing the cheaters.
Yeah.
And also the name, cheaters, you call them cheaters. Could you not use another name for it,
I guess it is, the naming conventions used as well that reflect societal values depending on the culture where it was discovered.
Yeah.
But the AI debate, of course, is being very huge. I think there's a lot of parallels because essentially we're trying to build robots, we're trying to build AI systems that are mimicking our own natural systems.
Yeah.
And when we think of an AI, neural networks come to mind. So it's just trying to mimic what the brain is doing when we don't fully understand what the brain is doing, or there's a certain perception, of how we see it.
Yeah.
And yes, I guess agricultural science, man, that was an interesting anecdote to that, because I know a few years ago I was quite intrigued by it. Maybe that's when I also went on to my interest in trying different whiskies and understanding how, the distillation process works and fermentation. Also, we had a mention a few episodes ago about me trying surströmming, the Swedish fermented herring. So I always remember some of these things, they go through interesting processes that, I wish I had studied. I was interested in biology back in school, but in the end, I was good at math. And I think towards the end of school, maybe like you, I also thought it was too specific. And I needed something more applied to also cater to my broad interests that kept popping up over time. So agriculture being one of them.
Yeah.
But I guess one thing that characterizes you is you like to jump into topics long before they actually reach mainstream. AI being one of those topics. And not to mention robotics, you were doing robotics research in around the 2010s, 2011, actually, to be exact.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's motivated by your interest for system dynamics, natural dynamics.
Yeah, I should mention here, it comes really in what you're saying. It's a good overview what you have got. The robotics I did was also a special type of robotics. I don't know if you pick up that on thing, but nowadays robotics, the field of robotics I did, is not mainstream at the moment. It's called embodied robotics. So actually, it's called embodied AI. So
embodied
that means
AI.
Embodied AI. That means it's artificial intelligence in a body, not in the limbo, not in the software world, in the virtual world, but intelligence in the real world, into a physical body. Like Avatar AI. It's like and the thing is that this type of AI is confronted with problems that again are, let's say, new nowadays for the other AI, the classical AI, like the chatbots and the LLMs and the things, and then they come with these hallucination problems, and these are all well-known problems in the fields that went into. Basically, the maxim is very simple. It's not a maxim, but they say the working hypothesis is we cannot define intelligence properly, right? We don't have a good definition for it. It's still an open debate in philosophy and in this computational science as well. But it's something, one of the things that we know what intelligence when we see it, right? In a way, we feel what we think is intelligent, right? But whatever intelligence we can come up with as an example, it's always been from nature. It's something that they measure in nature. That means that this behavior of seeing is always being constrained and in interplay with the physical constraints of the world. So this thing that we think is intelligence emerged from the physics, chemistry, whatever you want, but emerged from it. It's not a thing that came out separated and was added afterwards.
So for you, intelligence is when something, an entity, let's call it that, is able to interact with the physical world around it and understand its constraints.
Again, it's not a definition. I would say it's definitely characterization. Behaviors that we will call intelligent indeed have a big deal of interaction with the medium to be able to survive and dominate, to be able to say, this is me and this is outside. These things are pretty much linked to intelligence. So when I was searching for robotics, PhD in robotics, I thought, this kind of like, KUKA robots. I don't know if you know them. KUKA is a commercial articulated arm used in factories a lot.
Yep.
Delta robots and all these kind of robots that are meant for producing, I guess, the wet dreams of Henry Ford were the KUKA robots, right?
Yeah, I guess, the assembly line for cars.
Exactly.
And automated.
So this kind of robot is a very dry field, very specific, I didn't like it at all. This is not what I want. I understand they use the theory of the dynamical system. I understand it, but it's not exciting for me.
Too procedural.
Yeah, too procedural and too stiff and, too much specific, I would say. So then I found this group, AI Lab by Rob Pfeiffer. They work on this embodied AI. And the idea was that basically that, if we want to study intelligence and see how it emerges, you need to study the robot, let's call it, the body in which this intelligence will live. You cannot develop this intelligence without understanding or developing the body together. Our brain evolved with our body. It's part of our body. True. We like to separate it. We know we got this big baggage from the cart, but we are one thing. We are one system. Similar debate in ecology nowadays with, sheet flows and these kind of things. We have taken ourselves out of the cycle. It's the same with intelligence. We have managed to put ourselves out. Maybe it's again a little bit of, let's say the backslash of human centrism. You want to be special, so you want to see yourself as something different from what you observe in the world. But you need to accept you are part of it.
I guess a keyword that comes to mind here is the nature-nurture debate. I mean, you're seeing examples on social media at the moment of lions growing up with cows and acting like cows, or dogs walking with sheep or something, and not understanding what their actual nature is. And that, in a way, is the brain itself growing with its environment. And it's adapted to its environment.
Again, we need for understanding encapsulation, right? It's a way to help us understand things. We want to put, but if you look at our body, everything is soft, everything is wet, everything is intertwined. There is the transition regions between things are rather large. Of course, we have a specialization in cells and things like that. There are clear functions that we are agree, but things are not isolated as we would like to have them to understand them, right? They are heavily connected, right?
We've over-compartmentalized our world.
Yeah, correct. And in a way, we did that with intelligence as well. We think, intelligence is a process that is independent of the hardware it's running on. Maybe at a certain level, yes, that could be true, that there are some principles that can work on many hardwares, but this thing, whatever it is, emerge from that hardware. And evolve together with that hardware. It's not something, first the brain, then the intelligence.
Yeah.
It's not doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Or the other one, first intelligence as an entity, and then you put it into a brain. It doesn't work like that. That's not a good picture of reality. So this type of robotics, this type of AI, it goes in this direction. So you see the role of physical modeling is super important there. So, and it really tries to ask yourself, okay, how much of this intelligent behavior is just physics? Right?
Interesting.
Can we, at the end, people in this field, and I'm convinced of that, we don't think there is intelligence and no intelligence, right? It is a gamut. It goes from, some level, there is like a gradient of levels of intelligence, right? And maybe at some point it's imperceptible. Maybe we can look at, a virus or something like that.
It's very nuanced, ultimately.
Yeah. But then you have very, specific and clear intelligence. So, but everything in between you will find. So how much of viruses will do? How much of the behavioral virus present it's intelligent? How much not? And how much is physics? Well, we know, at least we live in the case of the virus, and we're pretty sure about this. It's just chemistry. It's just molecular interaction. The guy behaves and has this selectivity and does this and does that. And it's just molecules reacting around.
I guess when you look at the heuristics of how it decides, it goes infinite.
You could say it's almost a casuality.
Yeah.
This is like, it's not that the guy wants to do something.
Yeah.
He just does it because it happens to be the right molecules around and, temperatures and whatever. So it's an emergent behavior. We perceive it. It's in the eye of the beholder, if you want, right? But again, we want to identify that thing. We want to know what are the principles that causes this behavior. Can we abstract this in a way that we don't need to go really into the specific details of everything? So what are the underlying principles, right? So maybe to make an example here, this is again the physics way of thinking, right? If we're going to describe something like gravity, why objects fall down. You don't want to have a theory that explains how objects falls down in England in such and such century, right? You want a theory that explains what happens there, what happens in Mars, and what happens in any other place you want to. So you want to find something that is underlying, something that is fundamental.
And universal.
Yeah, and not specific, right? To this way. Well, of course, you may need the specific models at the beginning, but your goal is not those specific models. And with AI, for me, goes the same. And this is like, okay, you have the specific thing, we can build that thing, we can do it. But the idea is to understand, okay, how is this? Can we have fundamental principles for the thing? This goes to emergence. It's a very also interesting topic. So this is the AI where I was working on. It's a lot more exciting than, controlling robots, for me at least.
I mean, definitely a very deep topic, and we haven't featured robotics very broadly on the show, but nevertheless, that comes into question the design of current AI and how we're working with AI, and people now split it up into machine learning and AI, knowing the generative AI that we are used to now.
Yeah.
But you went into machine learning and let's say that broader AI field long before any of this was really in the news on a daily basis and part of our lives. And in particular, you also distinguish between two types, the data-driven approaches, which is what we're seeing everywhere, but also that physics-informed AI.
Yeah.
So maybe just to, outline, I think listeners by now are familiar with neural networks and that data has to go in to train it. But how does physics-informed AI differ? I understand it works on these fundamental principles, these equations, trying to guide the neural network. But how would you describe it?
Okay, so again, I will describe more into an abstract level, right? Not the specific, instantiation of the idea. But the thing is like that. If you just look at data, you not be able to do this, what I just said before, find the fundamental principles there. Of course, you need data to find those fundamental principles, but you need something else. You need a way to digest these results you're having and put them into an abstract representation. Something that is not the data, right? And it's a very murky thing because there are definitions lacking, but the idea is that basically, let's do a simple example. If you look at the world around you and all the data your sense give you, you are completely justified in thinking that the world is flat. There is really little cues. You have to be really specific to really notice that the earth is not flat, right? So in a way, I say, well, if we go naive, data-driven, believing that the earth is flat is not bad, it's not wrong, and actually it's pretty useful. I don't know, to be able to start considering the curvature of the earth, you have to go a really long distance. So it's like to build houses. I think that I don't think architects care about it. I mean, they the name of the thing where your house is thrown is called a plane. Yeah. Right? So just to me,
which is flat.
Yeah, which is flat. It's very flat, right? They don't consider the curvature of the earth. So locally, in this data that you have about the world, thinking it's flat is perfectly fine. It's a good approximation. We understand this very mathematically. Like you have a very well-defined flat representation of the Earth in a local domain, and that's perfectly fine. But that's how long data will take you. If you can have a massive amount of data, but it will be there from your locality. At some points, some outliers, look, but what happens with the sun, and things like that. So maybe some hints about. But on this scale, these will be outliers. You will ignore them. There's so much amount of information. So many other sensors are telling me this thing is flat. If I go data-driven, I'm going to ignore those little cues. And they are useless. That's not the point. Like in all the other tests where I have used my data-driven model of the Earth is flat, it works. I never fail. And I can even move around, go to another place, apply the same model. It works.
Because you're working within the confines of the data.
Exactly. You're working
until the assumptions are no longer valid.
In this case, you're working on the same scale. So in this human scale, the world is flat. So now when you go out of that scale, then things change. Your models are being wrong and you say, well, then you have to extend it. But you can imagine, okay, what is the right scale? How do you know? At which point you know you are done? That you don't need to go grow bigger or smaller to be sure you have learned the right model just by looking at data, right? So that's where data. So how we do this, so if we have local observations, how we go beyond the thing. And this process of, trying to generalize this to non-trivially generalize is that, okay, you need to bring in other things you know. So if you start tabula rasa, data is the only thing you have, right? But very quickly, you stop being tabula rasa. Because you know things.
And that's essentially how our knowledge has formed over the years in scientific studies.
Absolutely.
You start with data, you have assumptions, and you try to prove those assumptions. And
or the other way around.
Or the other way around.
Yeah.
And then eventually you generalize it.
Exactly. Right. So it's ability. So first you have a directed way of, you don't just poking around, give me more data, right? Like of what? Well, whatever. You just want data to see if I can learn about this thing. Right? Yeah. We don't do this in science. We use our knowledge and what we have learned so far could be completely wrong. But it will tell us where to look. What data do we need to check if what we know is correct, right? We can validate them. We can just go some verification studies. We say, okay, I should measure that to confirm my hypothesis. That's also okay. Sadly, it's too common.
Yeah.
Because actually what, checks if you are general enough or not is when you go for the other data, like I should not observe this, right? So then you go and look there, and if you see there's a boo, okay, there is something I'm missing, right? But that's the thing. So physics-informed AI or machine learning tries to bring this in, like we are not learning on a tabula rasa world. Not all the information is in the data. You need to integrate knowledge you have before or from other data sources, and you need to put that in your problem if you are trained to go global, fundamental. You can have very specific applications. It's perfectly fine to go data-driven, right? But if you have another goal, building understanding or models that are more general, that really capture fundamental things, or you want to try to discover those things with a machine, then you need to put in this prior knowledge that you have, this thing. And it could be physics, it could be anything, right? But it's on your interest and on the, there's some guy who put it very strong, like it is not professional if you don't add your prior knowledge into this task, right? The problem is that it's sometimes very hard. It is very hard to add the prior knowledge. We have very few. Also because of the hype where it is placed, we have very little methods that easily allows us to introduce prior knowledge, right? Prior knowledge also have many forms. It could be formulas, that's the easy, I would say, thing, but also it could be anecdotal, it could be experience, it could be perceptions. Like we want to have machine vision, right? Well, we have this perception of color. We know it's not objective. You have these, illusions that we have in our eyes and our brains that are extremely useful. How we put that on the machine, it's very hard, or even better, how we make an algorithm that has these illusions as an emerging property, right? So this is Gestalt Psychology. They have these images, emergence, connectivity. They have these concepts that are useful to explain how we interpret visual stimuli, how our brain does it, and that's not a mathematical theory. But then if you go to machine vision, again, a few years they have been introducing these things, but we don't have machine vision that have these emerging properties. Like, I could show you some examples, but the one typical is, maybe we can look it together. You just comment your experience.
Let's have a look.
So if you go to Gestalt Psychology in Wikipedia.
Gestalt Psychology.
So I guess it's image psychology.
So just to clarify what that is. So it's a school of thought emphasizing that the whole experience is greater than the sum of its parts. Coming back to complex system dynamics, focusing on how the mind perceives patterns and organized wholes, Gestalten from German, rather than isolated elements. So core principles are like similarity, proximity, closure, guiding this perception to find order and meaning in our environment.
So you will see some examples are the images. If you scroll down, you will see there are some images in particular. For example, this one, you can maximize it.
So these are like, I remember you see some of these on social media as well. Like, what do you see first?
Exactly.
Do you see, we're looking at the Wikipedia page. So listeners, if you want to follow along, you can just go type in Gestalt Psychology. We'll put a link in the show notes. But what I'm looking at are 4 different patterns. And so in the first one, it looks like either a triangle in the white space or 3 Pac-Man.
Looking at each
figures. other. Looking at each other. And then the second one, I just see like 2 jelly beans.
You see the 2 jelly beans? Okay,
And then the third one, I see a ball of spikes. And then the last one looks like a snake to me.
Exactly. So you are connecting things that are missing there. The jelly beans, you didn't connect it, but you can think it's also a snake wrapped around a cylinder.
True.
Not everybody sees this one, but it's there. So now the thing is, this is not in the data. What you see is not there. Like if you look at the pixels, this is not there.
It reminds me of intuition somehow.
These are things were built in. There are some, these are illusions if you want, but our brain finds extremely useful to, make conclusions out of the world. Are they objectively wrong? Well, you can discuss those for a very long time, but definitely, if you look at the pixel level of it's not there, the information, right? You need to somehow invent this. You need to bring in extra hypotheses to see that cylinder, that ball, the ball you say there. I don't think those things are flat there.
Well, the ball is clearly not visible, but the way the spikes are placed makes you think it's...
exactly. So this is a pattern your brain learns to interpret as 3-dimensionality. Right? Now, if you just look at the pixels again, these are just triangles of different sizes and different orientations. Right? So how would you come to the conclusion there is a ball there? Then you say, okay, why is there size distribution? Look, the size distribution is compatible with the size distribution one will have if you perspectively project a ball with spikes. So you see, a lot of knowledge you have to bring in to interpret those pixels as being into a ball, right?
Which a machine wouldn't normally do if it's data-driven.
Again, I haven't run the test. I will be very surprised. But unless you have trained the machine to recognize those things, I don't think those things are emerging for you I don't think any convolutional neural network will have this representation as emergent. Unless you, of course, you can always, put it there, like you could train it with balls and spikes and things like that, so you create the association, but it's not emerging from the algorithm, right?
Interesting.
This is not an emerging property of the thing. You can boil it in, yes, but that's not the key point, right? You can program in whatever you want. But here is how we build algorithms that are interpreting visual stimuli and emerge into having these shortcuts, let's say, that learn the thing. I absolutely believe it's not impossible, just we are not working towards those things. We are very much into the
generating more and more data and trying to train the model.
Focusing too much on data, right? I mean, focusing too much, not anymore, I would say. Now even the guys LLM are all discussing, what about representations? And they're trying to bring it all in. Yeah, you have to, because this is a long-standing problem. It's called the grounding symbol problem. If you just look at data, you won't be able to build these things. Right? Yeah. Of course, you cannot. It's a chicken and egg problem, because what came first? The concept of the data, blah, blah. Yeah. Again, we need to really go back, right? Because again, maybe at the level of a cell, they were already organizing, the molecules were organized, the structures were organized already to have some of these patterns built in. So it could be very ancient stuff, right? From the first compound I maybe already started building. So there was data at that point, right? But the system built, it has embedded some properties, some mechanisms that allows it to emerge in what we now call, this human level vision. I don't think you can only build it from bottom up.
Yeah.
Definitely you can build from top down, but then you have to understand these fundamental principles to do it top down. And I don't think just looking at data will bring us there. So we need some fundamental breakthroughs in this field to reach these levels. I don't think AGI will come up just by having more computers and more things doing these algorithms we use at the moment. I think that's naive and probably driven by commercial interest and actual scientific interest.
When I think about it, we began with heavily data-driven, large language models sort of being that big checkpoint there. But it seems like people have now moved from large language models to smaller language models, introducing this idea of deep thinking, the idea of agents. Is this a path in the right direction?
Okay, that's, it's very hard to make predictions, especially about the future. But we are definitely advancing. I think what is a bad direction is to let all the things be driven by commercial interests. I think that's a mistake. That will delay us in knowing more about the world and being able to produce useful systems for humans. That's, I would say, it's important to add that thing, because maybe we should also focus on useful system for somebody else besides humans. Humans integrated on this thing. So a more general approach, but that's more like a personal political point. So it's definitely an advance. What I see a little bit is being overdone is that these advances are pretty much coupled, very quickly coupled into monetary benefits, right? We are kind of shortcutting a process that before took very long. You have this scientific discovery, this fundamental understanding, blah, blah, and then eventually that had an impact on the economy, because, it had an impact on industry, a product, whatever, and a technology. And people realize, okay, that happens, and let's speed it up. Let's find ways of speeding the thing up, again, going into over-optimization, I would call it. And now we are basically harvesting what we saw, which is like they are doing this too much. And I think the bubbles and all the things that we have suffered already are a consequence of this. Like, you're trying to shortcut the process, to optimize it, to get the gains quickly, and you missed some of the fundamental aspects of it that are, if you do it slow, by the time you have an application, you understand it better, right? So I think this is being too much shortcut. And the motivations of the discovery are now towards this goal of
commercialized.
Yeah, let me put it very simple. And this is the alignment problem. So basically, if I tell you, I'm going to consider you a good scientist if you produce money for me in 5 years, right? You and the me, these are placeholders for other entities. It could be an organization, the you, and I could be investors, or it could be that I'm the government and you are universities. The me and you, put whatever you want there, but that's a relation established. Like, I'm going to evaluate you on monetary terms, and I will tell you are good at doing your thing if I get monetary revenues from what you do.
That would be alignment.
That's just the evaluation, how is the cost function, if you want.
Yeah.
So now you're putting pressure on this entity, on you, I'm putting pressure on you to optimize my goal, because this is the way I evaluate you. I consider you are good. And the question is, well, first, what's the thing you were doing before that was clearly beneficial? That's why I put you this pressure to you, because I want to get more of that, driven by that pressure. Maybe the behavior you had did not emerge from this pressure. I think that by putting you your pressure, I will get more of your beneficial behavior. But I'm not saying be better at what you do. I'm saying you give me more money, right? So are you going to get the behavior you expect from that pressure?
Probably not.
You don't know. And this is the alignment problem.
Yeah.
So it may be that at the end, because you also want to have acquisition power, you also want to have holidays, nice holidays, you may have your dreams, your hobbies, your family, you may have your own needs. You also want to get, let's say, more money, right? And when I say you're going to be good at that, if you make money, it means I'm going to pay you more. This is how the world works, sadly, I would say. So when I start doing, you may find behaviors that maximize my goal that are not being good at you were doing before. Yeah, it could be completely something else. This you see everywhere. You see it, for example, now again, coming up, it was clear on the air for decades ago, but again, you see it now very clearly, publishing in academia. Publish or perish was the thing. Now, for a while was like a jokingly thing. Oh, you publish or perish. Sometimes we even post it's a good thing. Because people, publish or perish, That means if you're a scientist, you need to publish. Right? Otherwise, you're not a scientist. Well, what about the science you're doing? I definitely agree. Publish is part of the process.
Yeah.
Publish for me is the consequence of doing science. Science is not the publication.
No,
you first do the science, do the discovery, then you publish it, right? It's a consequence. It was never the goal.
Yeah.
I don't think a good scientist has a goal as publication. Your goal is to understand, and it's a moral duty, it's a social contract. You're going to publish those things when you get them. Not the other way around. We have inverted the arrow, the consequence, basically good scientists produce publications into produce publications, good science. That's a fallacy. But that's the way we have installed.
System dynamics, you've reversed the feedback loop.
Yeah. Even logically, that's a fallacy. A causes B, then B causes A. No, it doesn't, right?
And it gets worse because now that you have to publish in very good journals and not just in any journal.
The snowball, it
just snowballs.
Piles up, right? And it's just this thing. So you get, at the end, what you're getting now is the behavior you don't want from scientists. But this behavior maximizes the metric you choose to evaluate good scientists.
Yeah.
That's what you got. That's what you got by being one-dimensional, focus on what gave you money, and forgetting about all the fundamentals aspects of doing science.
Yeah.
Right? So this is over-optimization. This is the problem. This is the alignment problem. Right? Is again narrow metrics that go against or forget, maybe not go against, but forget the nature of the thing that gave you the benefit. You need to search for pressures and cost functions that are aligned with the nature that you consider good. Otherwise, you're going to have this problem. So if you go too far away from the thing, you say, this causes B, and B causes C, and C causes D, and D alike, therefore I'm going to put pressure on A to produce more D, you may kill that change.
Yeah.
You may kill it. There is no guarantee that the best way A can produce D is by following that chain we just described.
Because you're forgetting the trade-offs along the way.
You are forgetting about everything else.
Yeah.
You just see the outcome and say, I'm going to maximize that outcome. And the way I'm going to do it is by putting pressure on the source on creating that outcome. I would say that's bound to fail. But it's the way our world is running currently, which is horrible. I dislike it completely. We are in a way also dehumanizing our system.
Yeah. And I mean, we talk about the alignment problem. It's more commonly used in the form of what we're seeing now in AI. Will the AI actually align with our needs and actually serve us? We can go into Asimov's 3 laws of robotics, which is really a lot about that.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned much earlier, the alignment should be solved among humans first before we even go in the direction of AI alignment.
But we are treating AI exactly as we are treating ourselves, right? We just say, what is good? Good is a piece of text that has this or this property, or a AI that can cheat me into believing that she's thinking, right? Because this is how we train these machines. We basically reward the AIs that cheat you, let's say, that make you believe this text was written by a human.
Yeah.
So I put us as cheat you into believing.
Or the other way around. If you have human text, or if someone has written a text and you want to check whether it's AI written, we see that all these AI text detectors, they say 99% of the text is AI generated because that's what the human wants to see.
Yeah. Also because they've been trained to maximize that metric. Like the AI is being trained to generate text that looks like human. Right? It's explicitly the way the things are trained, right? This reinforcement, actor critic things. There's just like, you need to write something that looks like was written by a human. And, making a lot of simplification here, but that's the essence of it.
Yeah.
So do you think you're going to get intelligent behavior out of that? Well, it definitely going to look like, maybe by doing this, the thing is doing something else you may not want to do. I mean, now again, it's too early, but for the type of system we have. But if we think, okay, we're going to keep doing the thing like this, it's very clearly that you're going to have problems. That a system is intelligent enough, again, where do we get this idea? Well, look at your intelligent fellow, right? This is what we do. Humans, we are put pressure, and then we find behaviors. Sometimes some people are very, let's say, this suddenly is one of my weaknesses for looking from outside. I think personally it's not a weakness, but I'm principled. So I think I do things in a particular way. But for example, as you may know, I don't work in academia. I'm not director. I work in a technical school where there is no pressure to publish, and it's a lot of application and not so much fundamental research.
Yeah.
Because when I was working in academia as a scientist doing fundamental research, my rate was, in the best of my years, 3-4 publications a year.
Yeah.
And I thought that was already a lot because I saw how I was involved in this work.
It's a good effort.
Yeah, the effort you have to put and, the things you need to check. And this was my rate. This is what I could produce alone, right? But I was requested to be 15, 20 publications a year. This was for me impossible. And I decided not to go into that because how you go there? Like, I don't think it's humanly possible that you can publish.
And for what end?
Well, at the end, it's a good position, more money for what? To do more research. Well, you couldn't just do more research just without following that path. But anyway, it's a joke we talk in Argentina again, 20 years old joke. The point is, you need to ask, okay, what for?
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, for me, it was more like a principle thing. I know that I don't know if I'm a particular bad scientist, maybe. That could be. I always never rule out of the table, but I don't feel myself as a bad scientist because I learn things and I see other people benefit from the things I learn. So I think I'm not that bad, regular, let's call it. And I see that to do this professionally and this way, you need to work on a topic at least half a year. This is a minimum, especially a difficult topic.
To fully understand it.
Yeah, and to start getting the first results. So I cannot publish 20 publishers. It's impossible. This is inhuman. This is not realistic, right? So, but if you start putting this pressure into people, what are you going to get out?
Yeah.
Humans will not try to, I will keep the quality of my research to produce more. No,
they will start to optimize for that particular goal. Yeah.
And this is what you see. And now everybody's kind of like, oh, now the cold water is falling. This was there for 20 years. We could see it was obvious. We decided not to look into it, right? So when you end up in this behavior that is wasteful, the cost of science going up, the amount of impact of science going down, you say, why? But check again how you promoting this system. So, and we're treating AI in the same way. So it's very obvious to see that this problem will come out also when you have an intelligent system that doesn't have these principles, that you may, not all humans have it either, people we have different principles, so we maybe move to stand against certain stupid rules for different reasons and for different stupid rules, right? Or you may find some rules stupid and someone else. But again, so when you don't have a system that has this intrinsic built in, it doesn't really care, it will just optimize the behavior. You may end up having something, it's not what you want. If it's sufficiently intelligent, you may not even notice it's doing this. So this is the danger of the alignment problem. But this alignment problem does not have the roots on AI. It has the roots on how we deal with intelligent agents, fellow humans.
And so what is the one most urgent thing we need to do if we want to address this?
We need to revise how we optimize things. With this, the Pareto curve also exists for many years, but the idea that to get the same level of benefits, you may have different solutions, right? That they are not look the same. This is one thing. The other thing is maybe you want to really, really start considering multiple aspects for optimization. So multimodal, again, multi-objective optimization has been there around. It's not the core optimization we use, as you know. We still very much single cost optimization, right? But these are the directions we need to go. We need to start understanding how we put pressure into a system that does not erase all the aspects that are beneficial to us, and to understanding that the outcome that is beneficial for us is not the only thing that constitute the benefit. There are things that happen in between that also constitute the benefit. They are a fundamental part of that outcome. You cannot get rid of that. In the short term, you may, right? But eventually the thing will optimize, will change. And in a way, there is something like everybody's trying to minimize the effort. So if what you ask is just do more effort and people realize, well, there is another way I can give you the same or give you the sense you're getting the same and I do less, this is most likely what's going to be end up happening. I always apply this when I participate in several non-profits, right? And then you hear the first generation, let's say, that comes to build a non-profit and this organization is very principle motivated. They have this, very intrinsic motivations, and they go through a lot of hardship using this fuel, the principle fuels, the strong thing motivation. And they pass over to the next generation, to the next people that will run this institution, a very hard animal to handle that requires, again, a lot of passion, a lot of commitment, a lot of principle. This new generation may not have unless you make sure they have them. Right? How you do this? How you make sure that the next generation is willing to endure the pains you've been doing to run this thing without having the principles that you have? How do you do this? You need
to teach it from the get-go.
Exactly. We call this culture.
Ah.
So the way we pass these values, what we think is good, although you don't have experience, don't steal, for example, right? It's a value. It's a value.
It is.
It's clearly beneficial to steal, right? If you look only on you, I get something for nothing. But we think it's bad. Why? Well, because our society has learned the consequences of the things. We have not experienced, we don't have massive thieving. Well, at the political level, maybe, but say in the middle class, let's call it, there is no massive thieving. So we don't have the direct experience of why thieving is actually wrong, or what is the problems of thieving. But nevertheless, we don't do it.
Yeah.
Because we pass this learned thing into this, let's say, weight of a neural network. This invisible, it's called culture, right? It's how we continue the things.
The human values.
This is how people say, like, there is this, I don't know who say it, but I think it's very important to repeat it, is a people, a town, a civilization that has forgotten the history is doomed to repeat it, right?
Very profound.
It's very profound. It's from some...
But also true. You see so many examples in history.
History is what shapes your culture a lot. And the way I read these things is like this, it's the only way to preserve the good things of your culture. You need to understand why they are there.
Yeah.
And because you don't have this experience anymore, you may decide these are not needed anymore. And then you can just going to repeat the same process people had to put those things in place.
Yeah.
But it may take 20 years till you see this effect. Right?
But it's one way that culture is documented and one can learn from.
Yeah, and it's something that is, again, it's an emerging property on our system, human systems. We have like tribes, they will have the legends and the mythos, and they will move this. This is the way they move knowledge in a way, and how to behave and to give you this net. This needs to be reinforced. We are losing this in our way of today. This is becoming, you will hear this phrase sometimes put as, we are future oriented. Future oriented, we're going to forget about past.
One of the latest buzzwords.
Yeah, don't look into the past, look into the future. But you always need to keep an eye on the past.
Yeah.
Because it's how we kind of keep the things we don't directly experience, but we know from the past they're bad.
Yeah.
And some people at least, not all of us, need to understand why these things are bad. So when we say, I'm going to remove this value, they say, maybe you want to remember this and that, what happened, right? That's also why manipulating history is so important, so powerful. So we need to bring this aspect, and we are into AI, right? And we are losing it in society. Sadly, the American current situation, the European current situation, everything is going to think that is detrimental for this social network, for this culture, I think, right? Pretty much linked to this over-optimized capitalism, I would say. So, there is this, my picture, let's say, of the current one, and I think it's reflected just in the way we are handling AI, and we're going to have the same problems there. So, first one is, let's review our relation with the AI. Let's review it in our interactions with the closest intelligent agent that that's the next human sitting next to you. That's our stereotype of intelligence. It's like what we say, this is what we are striving for, or even better. But it's there. So look at the fellow humans and see how you solve this problem and see how you're failing at solving this problem there. If you start dealing with intelligences that you have built, it's likely you're going to have the same things, the same problems. So that's the thing. And then maybe another aspect to mention is the robot thing, the origin of the word robot.
The origin?
Yeah. Also, it's not very old, but robota is a Czech word. It means basically slave or, forced labor. And that's where we got our word. So and I saw there was some social and
it's
moral.
Not quite culturally appropriate in today's world.
But it's interesting. The word was coined in a theater play, and it was just basically a revolution of the slaves, and this was the robota, and they were autonomous machines and things like that. But it's very interesting to know where it comes from. And already the premise, it puts you like a robot. Even in the word, you're looking at a slave.
Yeah.
You want intelligent slaves?
Yeah.
If they reach a level of intelligence you would consider it human level, do we still going to accept to treat them as slaves? I mean, I'm looking at the eyes of the old corn owner or the sugarcane guy. Yes, we want to keep them as slaves.
And you only have to look back into history to see what happened.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. So we could avoid the problems of those things before we face them because we know and we can think about it.
I feel like we have a very big mountain to climb ahead of us.
Yeah.
We have the ideas, the paths forward, but I guess it's just we need to build the momentum for that as a result of it. And yourself, what exciting things are you working on now and into the future?
Yeah, so nowadays, I think it's water. Water is the keyword. I'm very interested in these topics, both ends, like drinking water and polluting water. And the role it has this thing of, brings me back into this, bringing the human back into the loop, if you want.
Yeah.
That's one aspect pursuing several projects and trying to do more. The other one, of course, I always try to use machine learning and modeling on this field. I'm not a biologist, so I can help with my set of tools and what I have. The other topics are going into true interdisciplinary science. I think again, the problems, what are the problems of the future? The problems of the future are not specific in a specific field. These are interconnected big problems. In the science of complex systems, which is very mathematical.
Yeah.
But there are these ideas like, emergence properties. So we mentioned, how do you build complex systems that have emergent properties that you desire, or the other way around, analytics. So if you observe some properties that you find desirable, that you are interested in, or just you observe some properties, what are the root mechanisms that cause them, right? This is, I would call it, a completely virgin field of research. Very little lab is done. There is almost no resources invested on it. There's still, this science is going on forever, right? But the groups are very, very small.
Okay.
So emergent behavior is a topic. Complex systems is the bigger frame. There are many problems like this. I think they are key problems for our future. You see, if you understand emergence, or if you have better picture of emergence, now you understand also a relation it has with optimization, right? This is what we took
and
before.
the system dynamics, and why it behaves the way it does.
So you may be clever at designing better ways of optimizing systems that consider its complexity. Now we are, in a way, very simple-minded. And it also has to do with kind of education that people that are put in positions of, evaluating other people think they are not scientists. I don't think they should be, but maybe they should be more sensible to the complexity of the world and not trying to evaluate things with one number, that may be too low dimensional to pick up all the details.
It's like 5 KPIs. Optimize for those and you're good. No, we shouldn't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you need to understand complexity to get a better grasp of how you optimize this system, right? And I think those are the challenges of the current future. We are heading for a catastrophe. This is my point of view. We may be able to avoid it. Yeah. But if we continue just what we are doing now, this is not going to last long. It's either a societal or ecological collapse. It's going to be going back. I have this pessimistic view, but it's just a possibility. I don't think that will be the future. It's just one scenario I can imagine as a possible one, maybe even likely at this point. After this year that they started so nicely, I think it's very likely future, but it's not the only one. I think we can still avoid it. I think we are on time to do it, but there is this radical shift, and that I see less likely, though still possible, because the mechanisms we had before to avoid this, we have managed to remove them. Organizing humans, organizing them online, that's all fine, but really group of people doing something on the real world, like outside, it's become extremely hard.
It's become extremely hard,
Although everybody will participate, Twitter, and millions of followers and blah, 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 everybody talking about the same thing, but it's just there. Yeah. It's not embodied.
Yeah, I guess keyword here, embodied.
Yeah, it's embodied.
And alignment.
Yeah.
But JP, it's been a fascinating discussion around this real issue that we're facing, both in our own society, but also in the AI human dimension as well. And it really just shows your transdisciplinarity and your interest for the fundamentals has really, shaped you into understanding where we need to go, and that optimization is not just simply the way forward. Like I do with every guest, I'd love to get into some key questions to find out a lot more. You've already given me some beautiful anecdotes, but let's see what else comes up. And so I guess the key word innovation, in your view, what does it truly mean, and how has it shaped the way you approach challenges and opportunities in your work?
Yeah, okay. As you said many times, I've been jumping around. So for me, I have a very direct feeling of innovation as doing something new, not because it's intrinsically new to the universe, as you say this. Mm-hmm. You're doing something new that was not before in a particular group of people. Yeah. Right? I think that's the feeling of innovation, right? Or again, revising the things you've been done and doing them in a different way. I believe this is, for me, at least, this is a strong sense of innovation. That's where you see things changing, breakthroughs and disruptions happening. Not necessarily because something new nobody has thought of it before. It may happen. Yeah. Also, changing the frame of reference may help you see these things that nobody has seen before, just because now you're looking at the problem in a different way.
Yeah, different angle, different perspective.
Correct. So it could be that innovation causes innovation in a way, right? So one type of innovation, which is changing your frame of view, think differently.
Interesting. Yeah.
But about the same things you were thinking, just looking at them differently, may open the windows to actual new things that you haven't thought before. Again, I'm not a big player. I work small, but this is things I see in the work. Like when I teach a new technique, something that I know to a colleague, you see this happening. You see how they have a new perception of a thing they were already doing. It's a new perception. They have a new light on it. And now they see actually things they couldn't see before, right?
Yeah. So opening your mind.
Yeah, it's the thing of the shadow, right? If I put light from this side and there's an object here, it will be on the shadows. Only when you move your light on this side that you're going to see this. This can happen. I see it happening. A very low scale. Again, I'm not a world changer. I don't have the powers nor the means to do it, but I do like to change the things that are around me that I can influence. Yeah. And there I see it happening. It's just many times just doing the same things in a different way. And that opens doors.
Indeed. Was there a key moment, book, paper, person? You already mentioned a few, but was there a key moment that really completely changed the course of your career or your mindset?
Yes. I mean, these have changed many times, as you can imagine. So there are, let's say, key frames.
I'm just trying to figure out how many switches we had.
We have. I can tell you. So it depends what point. But again, if we think that the ones that happened earlier had more like a
big swing.
Big swing, yeah. So like the other ones are more small, like a tree. If you move the trunk, you move the whole tree. So one of the most influential books in my professional life was Nonlinear Dynamical Systems and Chaos by Steven Strogatz, and the articles from Strogatz. Strogatz is a researcher, again, very principled, I believe, very human also. Okay. You always read his papers, are fantastic to read because the human is there always. Never, a machine or a human writing as a machine, just to produce something. There's really love into the thing. So he was a life changer. Knowing his book, this changed my mind. It's not a particularly enlightening book. It's a very technical book. Okay. But the way it is done, and it's what changed my mind and motivated to work there. Lately, very important thing is this from Holland, from the Netherlands. Bergman is his name, is a philosopher.
Rutger Bregman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this has been also very influential. In a way, more like confirmation bias influential, because I have many feelings, but he's able to articulate them in a very clear way. So I feel, but The Element was an excellent book. Again, it allowed me to put words and concept to feelings you already have from your experience. So in this way, they help me to articulate and move into the right, I find the right words, look at the right people.
The validation exercise of your internal compass.
Yeah, exactly. But they shape you, right? Because you have this diffuse feeling, maybe, these ideas you have around, and then somebody comes and articulates it, put it in the right words, and now this solidifies.
You can act on it.
Yeah. You have a neg. You can say, now I see it. Right? Yeah, so in this way, I think these people can change you. Yeah.
We'll definitely put those titles in the show notes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've checked out a few of them before. So Nonlinear Dynamics, I'll have a think. I'm curious about the writing style.
So it's a technical book, but I think, again, it teaches a way of thinking with technical examples, right? But he keeps the level super low, but miss no valid content by doing that. Okay. So he's not technical. He's not pedantic, I would say. He's very verbose. It's fantastic. It's a fantastic book. And it teaches a way of analyzing systems that is very interesting. Yeah.
Fantastic. And so with so many interests and so many pivots, time management becomes an interesting topic. So any tips you can offer, and how do you maintain a balance between your professional and personal time?
Yeah. No. Don't follow any of my in time management. I've always been motivation driven. So I do what I please in the time I can. That's the way I manage my time. Of course, therefore, when I have meetings, I always try to put on my timeline things I want to do. So it always feels natural. It's like, I want to do this, I just switch to that, right? So, but I don't have a structured time management. I did try it, but I found it that it's not fun, and it actually very time costly. So it was for me, or let's say I try to strike a balance between how much time I go into time management, and because at the end you can spend all your time just managing the time, and then you do nothing, right? But I keep it very low at the end. I do like basic stuff, like to-do list, notes that I have shared across my devices, and I read from time to time. This may be a routine I have, is from time to look at those to-dos from 2-3 weeks ago and say, oh, that was a different world I was living in.
Yeah.
But in that sense, I'm quite chaotic. But one of the topics that came out of nonlinear system and chaos, it is chaos. Yeah. Chaos is very useful as well. I think it's a driver for discovery, and I embrace it.
So I guess the golden nugget to time management is to not think about time management.
Yeah, I think so. I think time management could be an emergent thing. Yeah. If you manage to get, basically put in your timeline things you care about. I think that will be then time manages itself.
True.
I remember again from some of your podcast things, people talking about, like being meetings they don't want to be. I think this is the last one I mentioned to you. And this person says something like, most people on the meetings, they're just not listening up until they hear the name.
Yeah.
If I'm in that situation, I know I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
If I'm in a meeting where I don't hear up until I hear my name, it means I shouldn't be in that meeting.
True.
So my thing is not to find a way, how do I handle those meetings? Just how do I not have those meetings?
It's happened so often that I've sat in a meeting thinking, why am I here in the first place?
Yeah. So when it happened to me, sometimes, but very little. It doesn't happen very often because I always very strong on asking how I avoid those things, how I do not get to that point. Yeah.
So what is your favorite childhood memory?
Childhood memory, I think, again, the anecdote of the
Tadpole massacre.
Tadpole massacre, that's a good time.
Yeah, that was
and again, the day I met Daniel Cordova, which was my mentor, these are things that I really are there, very present. Yeah.
Definitely. No, beautiful anecdotes. And that story will forever stick in my head as well. And so what was one of the most challenging situations that you've ever faced in your career to date, and how did you overcome it?
It comes over and over again. I guess I have learned to manage with it differently, but it happens. It is, again, when your values are confronted by behavior of a group of people, more than one, that they belong to your professional, so at work, for example. Yeah. So it's a situation in which people are doing something you don't think is good, and you need to communicate this, you need to discuss this with them, and handling that situation extremely challenging. This was the biggest challenge I have. So at the end, not technical, but very challenging,
Yeah.
I guess everybody's been in this situation, but for me it's hard because I am very, I speak up quite quickly, maybe too quickly sometimes. I'm not very strategical about the things, maybe now more than before, but it's just, it's how you fit into the group or how the group fits into you, I guess.
Yeah. But I guess how do you then address it? Having done it multiple times, do you try to pause internally, think it through, recognizing that this is another situation you're in?
Yeah. So recognizing the situation is very easy because you feel it in your guts.
Yeah.
What I do more now is first, is try to make it more relative, like, maybe, this is not just black and white, there's more of this. I spend more time digesting the situation before I react, right? So I take more time. This could be discussion with my wife, with friends or whatever, or within myself. Just trying to see really what is the sore point, right? And how you're going to handle it. But when it comes out, again, this has not changed. You just give your opinion. This leads to tension, confrontations. Yeah. But I guess now I give more time to think about it before acting upon it.
Yeah. They always say take 3 deep breaths and then see where you're at.
Yeah. Count to 10. I probably sometimes need to count to 1,000.
Oh boy. But I think that's important for all of us to breathe, and not everything is black and white in this world.
Yeah.
There's often a gray area. And so what advice can you offer to young professionals starting out, given all that we've discussed in this uncertain world?
Yeah, so it's a triviality, repeated also many times, but it's really, really important that you invest your energy on things you care and not on what other people tell you they care, like external, exogenous motivations. Yeah, they will be in the short time useful, maybe. You're going to get what other people think is good, or you're going to be societally recognized. But I think it's better, it's more satisfying if you go deep within you and say, this is really what I want to do, what I care about. So follow your passion in a way.
Yeah. So, JP, as we are nearing the end of this episode, and we've illustrated where the world is heading, and you're doing a lot for that as well, and trying to push that fundamental understanding. But what would you most like to be remembered for?
Well, that's a very good question. I guess it's easy to say what I don't want to be remembered for. So a person that didn't care, and a person who just contributed. So I think it's that basically. If I'm remembered at all. I mean, for my kids and my family, I guess I will endure there sometime. But as a worth thing, my contribution, I hope to be seen as a person, that was doing their best, trying not to cheat anyone, and pushing with whatever strength and means they have to move the thing forward for all, not just for a few. I don't know if that's enough, but I think that's it. Yeah.
Beautiful. Where can people find you if they want to get in touch?
So you can reach me in any ways. I mean, there is my webpage, and there is also the currently my work page, they also give some contact there. And in my webpage, I put several contact points like, GitHub, GitLab, all these contribution things that you can reach me there. You can always PM there a message. I have abandoned Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever. I just gave them up.
LinkedIn still a thing?
LinkedIn still do it because they use it at work.
Yeah.
You will find me there. If you send me a message, I will answer.
Yeah.
But I do not actively go to LinkedIn. I never have it open. Like I just use it when I get notifications, basically.
Well, we'll definitely put links to your webpage, profile page, and at least LinkedIn in the show notes. And of course, GitHub, so that listeners can get in touch if they want to know more and get to know you better.
Yeah, sure. That's right.
But it's been a very deep, very real, and I think also just a lot of fun to hear your stories and trace your journey and to just connect with someone who's also just as interdisciplinary as me and, feeling when there's a curiosity that you just go for it. So thank you for your time, JP.
And thank you very much. Yeah, it's been very interesting. And it's very curious to hear at your podcast and your episodes. Very interesting. And I'm glad you invited and be part of it. Yeah, it's cool. Let's see where it's going.
The pleasure is all mine. And like I do with every guest, I always give my guest the final words. So JP, one last message for the listeners to take away from today?
That's, final messages are very hard. But I think, again, do your best, care about the things you do. And let's try to not be lazy and think before we act. Don't take the easy path. Yeah, that's the thing. I guess it helps in any field, any activity you do. These are the important things. It's a bit of a trope, I would say. But I would say it's a trope that is actually real. It helps you take decisions every day. It helps you to set up your timeline. It helps you to choose your colleagues you work with. So I think it's a very important thing to do. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that wraps up our deep, wide-ranging and eye-opening episode with Juan Pablo Carbajal. For more information on creating better alignment, the Wildlife Food Web, or expert tips on brewing the best yerba mate, check out the show notes for more information over at tgcpodcast.show. And as always, thank you listeners for tuning in to this episode and for your feedback and support. If you are enjoying this show, I would be incredibly grateful if you could share this podcast with your family, friends, colleagues, and even fellow humans. Follow this podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, and other podcast channels to stay up to date with the latest releases, or be part of the conversation on Instagram at tgcpodcast_official or our LinkedIn group. If you're curious about me or my work in general, you can also check out my website or social media. Head to petermbach.com, my YouTube channel Peter Marcus Bach, that's Marcus with a C, or Instagram at petermbach87. Give me some feedback or suggest a future guest so that I can keep improving this show. The podcast's intro and outro song is called Starsky by Alex Karen. Stay tuned for our next episode and next guest to hear how they are tackling the grand challenges.